Rick Harrison's life is in serious danger after something terrifying shook his world. The Pawn Stars icon has faced countless risks throughout his career, but this time, the stakes are higher than ever. Known for his sharp business acumen and encyclopedic knowledge, Rick always seemed to make the right call in any situation. Will Rick survive this life-threatening situation? Let's dive deep into the matter and uncover some hidden information that the History Channel doesn't want anyone to know. Recently, Rick's pawnshop career took a harrowing turn. What was once just another day at the world-famous gold and silver pawnshop quickly spiraled into a nightmare. For the first time in his decades-long career, Rick faced a situation that wasn't just about making a deal or authenticating a rare item. It was about survival. Something went terribly wrong, and suddenly, the fearless businessman found himself in a battle for his life. Before we dive into the shocking details, it's clear this incident is far more dangerous than anyone could have imagined, and what happened next will leave you absolutely stunned. This piece delves into the details of the near-tragic event that almost cost Rick Harrison everything, how it unfolded, and what it means for his future. We will also look back on the long, often challenging path that brought Rick to where he is today, shedding light on how the recent incident has changed him forever. Rick Harrison's story begins in the desert city of Las Vegas, Nevada. Born on March 22, 1965, Rick grew up surrounded by the unique blend of opportunity and risk that defines Sin City. His family had deep roots in the world of buying and selling. His father, Richard "Old Man" Harisson, opened the gold and silver coin shop in 1981, and from a young age, Rick was drawn to the family business. His childhood was far from typical, marked by severe epileptic seizures that often kept him confined to bed, where he developed his lifelong love of reading and learning. While other kids might have been playing sports or hanging out with friends, Rick spent much of his youth absorbing information from books, developing the vast knowledge base that would later become his trademark. He admired his father's work ethic and business savvy, and by the time Rick was a teenager, he was already hooked on the pawn business. His fascination with history and his desire to prove himself led him to take on more and more responsibility in the family shop. At just 13 years old, Rick was already working alongside his father, and he didn't waste any time showing the world what he was made of. Despite his youth, he proved to be a natural businessman. His ability to assess value, negotiate deals, and spot fakes set him apart. He wasn't just another kid helping out in a family business. He was a born entrepreneur, earning respect from those around him. Rick's breakout moment came when he joined forces with his son Corey and Corey's childhood friend Austin "Chumley" Russell to create Pawn Stars, the reality TV show that follows the daily operations of their pawn shop. Viewers were instantly captivated by Rick's vast knowledge and straightforward approach to business, as well as his willingness to take calculated risks in pursuit of profitable deals. But while Rick was ambitious and shrewd, the pawn business in Las Vegas is fraught with danger, and he quickly learned that it wouldn't always be easy. Over the years, fans have watched Rick grow from a local pawn shop owner to a television star and business mogul. He has faced enormous challenges, from economic downturns to authentication controversies, and even the loss of his beloved father. But no matter what obstacles came his way, Rick always found a way to push through and come out on top. His resilience and determination became the hallmark of his business career, and he consistently set higher goals for himself with each season. However, while Rick may have developed a reputation for being a calculated risk-taker, even the most experienced businessmen can be caught off guard by the unpredictable dangers that lurk in the world of high-value pawning. This year, those dangers came crashing down in the form of a catastrophic incident that changed everything for Rick Harrisson. The life of a pawn shop owner in Las Vegas is never predictable. Each day, the stakes seem to get higher, and the risks become more daunting. In recent years, Rick Harrisson has taken on more ambitious ventures than ever before. determined to expand his empire and secure his legacy beyond the pawn shop. But with that ambition comes an increased level of risk. The latest chapter in Rick's life was shaping up to be one of his most intense yet. Not only was he facing fierce competition from other pawn shops and online marketplaces, but he was also battling the increasingly dangerous environment of Las Vegas. Rick had set his sights on new business opportunities, but these ventures were particularly challenging. The combination of high-value items, the city's criminal element, and Rick's growing public profile made every day a potential threat. It was a perfect storm of obstacles, and Rick's determination to succeed was put to the ultimate test. Rick's near miss left him shaken, but the tough times ahead would push him even harder. From the very beginning of the year, Rick's stress levels were noticeably higher than in previous times. He was managing multiple businesses, dealing with increasingly valuable inventory that was constantly at risk, and racing against the clock to meet his lofty expansion goals. His workdays stretched into long, exhausting hours, and the constant pressure was beginning to take a toll on his mental and physical well-being. But in typical Rick fashion, he refused to back down. He was determined to prove that he could overcome any obstacle, no matter how difficult or dangerous. But while Rick's drive and business acumen have always been his greatest strengths, they may have also been his downfall. As the months wore on, it became clear that the situation was becoming increasingly hazardous. The shop was handling more valuable items than ever before, security concerns were mounting, and threats had been made against the business. For Rick, calculated risks were nothing new, but this time felt different. It was as though everything was teetering on the edge. And then, without warning, disaster struck. It was a day that started out like any other for Rick Harisson and his team at the world-famous gold and silver pawn shop. They were preparing to open for business, with Rick reviewing some rare coins that had come in the previous day. The morning had been quiet, with the usual preparations for what they hoped would be another profitable day. But despite the routine nature of the morning, Rick had an uneasy feeling that he couldn't quite shake. The shop was set to open in just a few minutes, with staff positioned throughout the store and security measures in place. Rick was in his office, making a few final calls before heading out to the main floor. But then, without any warning, disaster struck. A group of armed individuals burst into the shop, their faces concealed and their intentions clear. The normal bustle of the pawn shop was shattered by shouting and the terrifying sight of weapons being brandished. The noise was deafening. The sound of display cases being smashed, the shouting of demands, and the screams of staff and early customers scrambling for safety. Rick, hearing the commotion from his office, was faced with a split-second decision that would determine his fate. As the owner and the face of the business, he knew he would be a primary target. His years of experience in the pawn business had prepared him for the possibility of robbery, but nothing could fully prepare anyone for the reality of such a violent situation. Rick found himself in a life-threatening situation. As he attempted to secure the most valuable items and alert authorities, the armed robbers discovered his location. For a brief, terrifying moment, Rick was cornered. A weapon pointed directly at him, as demands were made for access to the safe and the most valuable items in the shop. The tension in the air was palpable, with Rick knowing that any wrong move could cost him his life. Rescue efforts began immediately, with silent alarms triggering a rapid police response. But the situation was far from simple. The robbers were well organized and clearly knew the layout of the shop and its security measures. Every second felt like an eternity, as Rick tried to keep himself and others safe, knowing that any delay in police arrival could mean the difference between life and death. For what seemed like hours but was actually minutes, Rick Harisson was at the mercy of armed criminals, his fate uncertain. The Las Vegas police had to proceed with extreme caution, navigating the volatile situation and ensuring that they didn't cause any additional danger to the hostages inside. The situation was tense, with the robbers becoming increasingly agitated as they realized that their escape window was closing. At one point, one of the robbers held a gun directly to Rick's head, using him as a human shield as they attempted to negotiate their way out of the surrounded building. Corey Harisson, Rick's son and business partner, was not in the shop when the robbery began, having been delayed in traffic on his way to work. When he received frantic calls about what was happening, he rushed to the scene, only to be held back by police officers who had established a perimeter around the building. The anguish on Corey's face was evident as he watched the situation unfold, powerless to help his father and their employees. News of the hostage situation spread quickly through Las Vegas and then across the nation. Fans of Pawn Stars and fellow business owners sent messages of support and prayers. Social media was flooded with concern for Rick and everyone involved, with many sharing their personal connections to the Harisson family and their famous shop. The outpouring of support was a testament to Rick's influence and the deep connection he had formed with viewers over the years. For those close to Rick, the situation brought back painful memories of previous security concerns. Over the years, the increased fame from the television show had made the shop a more prominent target. They had dealt with theft attempts, security threats, and the constant challenge of balancing public access with safety. Each time, they had adapted and improved their security measures. But this time, the question on everyone's mind was, would Rick's luck and quick thinking be enough to save him? The Las Vegas Police Department deployed their hostage negotiation team, drawing on their expertise in handling high-stress situations. It was a delicate balance of psychology, timing, and strategy. Every word exchanged with the robbers was critical, every offer carefully considered. The negotiators were well aware that they were fighting for the lives of not just any hostages, but a beloved television personality and businessman whose influence extended far beyond Las Vegas. After what seemed like an eternity, there was a breakthrough in negotiations. The robbers, realizing they were completely surrounded and that their options were dwindling, began to show signs of willingness to end the standoff. It was a small victory, but a significant one. The immediate danger had not passed, but there was now hope that the situation could be resolved without further violence. When the first hostages were released, the relief outside was palpable. But Rick was not among them. As the face of the business and the person most likely to have access to the most valuable items, he remained a key hostage. The tension continued to mount as negotiations for his release became more intense. The standoff lasted for several more hours, with moments of progress followed by setbacks. Throughout it all, Rick maintained his composure, drawing on his years of negotiation experience to help keep the situation from escalating further. Those who know him best would later say that if anyone could talk their way out of such a dangerous situation, it was Rick Harisson. Finally, after a strategic police operation combined with successful negotiation, the situation was resolved. The robbers surrendered, and Rick and the remaining hostages were freed. The moment Rick emerged from the building, visibly shaken but alive, cheers erupted from the gathered crowd of onlookers, employees, and family members. For Rick, the reality of what had just happened began to sink in. The man who had built his career on assessing risk and value was now forced to confront the ultimate value, that of human life, including his own. It was a sobering realization, one that would change his perspective on business, fame, and what truly matters. As Rick was checked by medical professionals and debriefed by police, the full extent of the robbery became clear. The thieves had targeted specific high-value items, suggesting that the robbery was not random but carefully planned. This raised troubling questions about security breaches and inside information. How did the robbers know so much about the shop's layout and valuable inventory? Was someone feeding them information? These questions would haunt Rick in the days and weeks to come. The aftermath of the robbery brought a flood of media attention. News crews camped outside the pawn shop, and interview requests poured in from across the country. The History Channel, home to Pawn Stars, issued a statement expressing relief that Rick and the other hostages were safe. But questions about the future of the show loomed large. Would Rick want to continue putting himself in the public eye after such a traumatic experience? For Rick himself, the days following the robbery were a blur of police interviews, insurance claims, and emotional processing. The psychological impact of having his life threatened was profound. For a man accustomed to being in control, the feeling of helplessness during the robbery was particularly difficult to reconcile. Nightmares and flashbacks disrupted his sleep, and the shop, once his sanctuary, now felt like a place of danger. The support from family proved to be Rick's greatest strength during this difficult time. Corey, in particular, stepped up to handle the day-to-day operations of the business, while Rick focused on recovery. Their bond, always strong, was further cemented by this shared trauma. The Harisson family had faced challenges before, but nothing had tested them quite like this. As the initial shock began to wear off, Rick was faced with difficult decisions about the future. Should he increase security at the cost of the shop's welcoming atmosphere? Should he reduce the value of items kept on the premises? Should he step back from public life altogether? These were questions that had no easy answers, and Rick found himself at a crossroads unlike any he had faced before. The robbery had not only threatened Rick's life, but had also shaken the foundation of the business he had spent decades building. The gold and silver pawn shop had always been more than just a store. It was a Las Vegas landmark, a television set, and the fulfillment of the Harisson family dream. Now, that dream had been tarnished by violence and fear. In the weeks that followed, Rick began the process of rebuilding, not just the physical security of the shop, but also his own sense of safety and purpose. He consulted with security experts, made significant upgrades to the shop's protection systems, and implemented new protocols for handling high-value items. These practical steps helped restore some sense of control, but the emotional recovery would take much longer. For fans of Pawn Stars, the question remained: would Rick return to the show? The program had made him a household name, but it had also made him a target. The very fame that had brought him success now carried with it an element of danger that couldn't be ignored. The decision weighed heavily on Rick, torn between his love for sharing his knowledge with viewers and his newfound awareness of his own vulnerability. As Rick contemplated his future, he also reflected on his past. The journey from a young boy with epilepsy to a successful businessman and television personality. He thought about the lessons his father had taught him, the risks he had taken that had paid off, and the values that had guided him through good times and bad. These reflections helped him gain perspective on the robbery and its place in the larger story of his life. Gradually, Rick began to find his footing again. The fear didn't disappear, but it became manageable. The nightmares became less frequent, and he found himself able to focus on the future rather than being trapped in the trauma of the past. It was a slow process, marked by good days and bad, but Rick approached his recovery with the same determination that had characterized his business career. Throughout this journey, Rick was surprised and touched by the outpouring of support from fans around the world. Letters, emails, and social media messages flooded in, with people sharing how much Pawn Stars meant to them and offering words of encouragement. This connection with viewers, which Rick had always valued, but perhaps taken somewhat for granted, now took on new significance. It was a reminder of the positive impact he had made through sharing his knowledge and passion for history and collectibles. As Rick continued to heal and rebuild, the experience of the robbery began to shift from a source of fear to a catalyst for change. It forced him to reevaluate his priorities, to consider what truly mattered in his life, and to make decisions based not just on business success, but on personal well-being and safety. It was a painful lesson, but one that would ultimately lead to a more balanced approach to his career and public life. The robbery also highlighted the darker side of fame and success, the way that visibility can make someone a target, and how the very things that bring achievement can also bring risk. For Rick, who had always been open about his life and business on television, this was a difficult reality to accept. The line between sharing his passion with the world and protecting himself and his family had never been so starkly drawn. As time passed, Rick began to speak publicly about his experience, using his platform to discuss not just the robbery itself, but the larger issues it represented: the risks faced by business owners, the psychological impact of trauma, and the importance of security in an increasingly unpredictable world. In doing so, he transformed a personal tragedy into an opportunity for education and awareness, helping others who might face similar situations. For the Harisson family and the staff of the Gold and Silver Pawn Shop, the robbery became a defining moment, a before and after that changed how they approached their business and their lives. The shop reopened with enhanced security, and gradually, customers returned. The familiar rhythm of buying, selling, and negotiating resumed, but with a new undercurrent of caution and awareness. As for Pawn Stars, the show eventually continued production, though with some changes to protect the safety of Rick and the other cast members. The History Channel worked closely with the Harrisons to address security concerns, while maintaining the authentic feel that had made the show a success. For viewers, the return of new episodes was a welcome sign that Rick had not allowed fear to defeat him. Through it all, Rick Harisson demonstrated the resilience that had always been his hallmark. The robbery had tested him in ways he never imagined, but it had not broken him. Instead, it had revealed new depths of strength and determination, and a capacity for growth and adaptation that would serve him well in the years to come. As Rick looks to the future, the memory of that terrifying day remains with him, not as a constant source of fear, but as a reminder of what he has overcome and the perspective he has gained. The man who built his career on knowing the value of things now has a deeper understanding of what is truly valuable: family, health, safety, and the freedom to pursue his passions without fear. The story of Rick Harisson is still being written, with new chapters that reflect both the impact of trauma and the power of resilience. For fans and followers, it is a reminder that behind the television personality is a real person who has faced real dangers and emerged changed, but undefeated. And for Rick himself, it is a testament to his ability to face adversity head-on and find a way forward, no matter how difficult the path may be, than ever before, and that he needs to be smarter about how he handles security and public exposure. "I can't keep doing business the way I have been," he said. "I need to find a balance between running a successful pawn shop and keeping myself and my family safe." But for those who know Rick, it's hard to imagine him stepping back entirely. The pawn business is in his blood. It's what drives him, what excites him, and what gives him purpose. While the robbery may have made him more cautious, it's unlikely that he will abandon his career altogether. Instead, Rick is likely to find new ways to pursue his passion while taking a more measured approach to the dangers that come with fame and valuable merchandise. As Rick recovers and plans for the future, the Pawn Stars community will be watching closely to see how he moves forward. His near-death experience has sparked important conversations about the ethical implications of reality TV shows that potentially put their stars at risk by exposing their businesses and valuable collections to the public. Some fans have expressed concern that the risks are simply too high, and that the show should take a more cautious approach to revealing details about the shop's operations and inventory. As Rick starts to heal, the dangers he faced make him think deeply about what he should do next. Rick Harrison's recent brush with death serves as a stark reminder of the inherent dangers of reality TV fame. While the allure of television success and the opportunity to share his knowledge with millions may drive personalities like Rick to take risks, the reality is that such exposure can make them targets. Every day, high-profile business owners face life-threatening challenges, from targeted robberies to stalkers to elaborate scams designed to exploit their wealth and fame. Reality TV stardom is not just physically dangerous, it's mentally and emotionally taxing as well. Stars work long hours under the scrutiny of cameras, often sacrificing privacy and normalcy for the sake of ratings. The pressure to maintain their image, combined with the constant threat to their security, creates an environment where the stakes are always high. For Rick Harisson, the dangers of being a public figure have always been part of the job, but the recent robbery has made him and his fans more acutely aware of just how unpredictable and dangerous fame can be. No amount of experience or security measures can fully protect reality stars from the risks they face every day. Will Rick go back to his old ways of building his empire, regardless of the personal risk? Or will he choose a safer, more careful approach to his legendary pawnshop career? These are questions that only Rick can answer, and fans will have to wait and see what happens next. Is Rick Harrison's latest danger just part of the risks of being a famous pawnbroker, or is there something more going on behind the scenes? Let us know your thoughts, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more.